All right, everyone, welcome into episode 41 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. It's September 13th, 2022, and you are watching the only podcast that focuses on American and Brazilian sports at the same time. I'm Nicholas Hill, live as always from Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States. And joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing? Yes, go Vol, sir. What a weekend for the Tennessee Volunteers. A huge win at Pittsburgh. We'll get into that. But lots of chaos. So, of course, this was the first full weekend of football in both college and NFL. And there was a lot of crazy games, lots of crazy results. So, we're going to get right into it. First of all, Ben, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, doing great. Yeah, it was a really great weekend of football. I didn't fully follow. I listened on the radio actually, part of the first and second half of Tennessee football. I catch some NFL action just a little bit because I was following the Brazilian soccer weekend. Broadcasting here and there. But I know, it feels like the fall. Can't get any better mid-September, full football, college football chaos, and a lot of questions regarding, especially two big football programs there, lost bigly this weekend. And NFL, some upsets, especially yesterday. But let's get into college football, especially what happened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so we'll start there real quick. So Saturday, the Tennessee Volunteers, ranked number 24 in the country, went up to Pittsburgh for a rematch with the number 17 Pittsburgh Panthers. Pittsburgh were last year's ACC champions. Um, and they came down to Knoxville and they really lit up Tennessee last year, put up 41 points. Kenny Pickett had his coming out party. And Tennessee just could do nothing to stop them. But granted, on the other sideline, we really began to see the birth of Josh Heupel's offense in that game last year. So this was a very interesting rematch, a huge one. Because Pittsburgh no longer has Kenny Pickett. They lost Jordan Addison, their top wide receiver. And this game was certainly crazy. So basically, the recap of the game was
Tennessee. First down, Tennessee at the 25-yard line.
Yeah, anyway, so they started off really slow. Pittsburgh came out the gates. They were up 10-0, and it looked like it was going to be an absolute disaster. Pittsburgh was driving again. They were in the red zone when Keaton Slovis threw an interception in the back of the end zone, and that changed the entire tide of the game. The Vols ended up storming back.
What a moment. And now that I see, wow, what a play by Trevon Flowers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why, remember, he was taken to Atlanta. He is seen as one of the most important defensive players in this backfield for a reason. Because the rest of the secondary, they're relatively young, relatively inexperienced. And, he has to perform well if the secondary has any shot of performing well. And, so the Vols storm back through the first half. They take the lead in the halftime 24-17. And then this thing turns into a defensive slugfest. Now, probably the biggest storyline coming out of this game for the Vols is their defensive line was absolutely phenomenal. They forced 25 pressures on the quarterback, including, I believe it was 6 sacks. I think they hit the quarterback like 13 times. And you got to remember, the week before, they had no sacks against Ball State. They really weren't getting to the quarterback that much. But this defensive line absolutely tore up the Pittsburgh quarterbacks. And he really injured both of them. Keaton Slovis, he went out of the game at halftime. And Nick Patty, the backup, he got banged up too and was hobbling around trying to finish that game.
And I feel like that's why, people take for granted those, kind of low tier games. But when you don't do well in maybe a section of your team, you can see what can be improved. And I feel like Josh Heupel saw that, and what improvement! That I feel like was the biggest storyline.
Oh my God, yeah, because the defense last year, was the obvious weaker side of the ball, and I still think it is the weaker side of the ball between the two sides. But clearly, this defensive line has taken a massive step forward. And of course, you remember the defensive line coach is Rodney Gardner, so he's renowned as one of the best defensive line coaches in the entire country. Um, and it shows. Because remember, Rodney Garner was defensive line coach for the Vols during their '98 championship season. He's been on a lot of championship teams around the SEC, and he brings a huge presence to this football program because of just the experience that he has. And clearly that has become the strongest part of our defense. And that really was what won us this game, because the offense went very cold in that second half. I mean, there were no touchdown drives at all in the second half for this Hendon Hooker-led Tennessee offense. Now, I think a lot of the credit here does have to go to the Pittsburgh defense. I think this Pittsburgh defense has a lot of talent on it. And they typically are a pretty decent team on that side of the ball. But, it's at least comforting to know that if we go into a drought like that, then we have a shot with our defense to stay in this football game. And as you saw right there, we went to overtime. Cedric Tillman catches that touchdown from Hendon Hooker. And then I believe this play right here, third down. You're going to see Nick Patty, who goes back. He drops back for a pass. Trayvon Flowers comes in. And you got to remember, Flowers had muffed a punt in the second half that had allowed them to effectively get this thing into OT. But he got that huge sack. They missed that fourth down pass, and the Vols win in overtime. Just a gutsy performance, because it wasn't a pretty performance by any stretch of the imagination. It wasn't a flawless performance. But, we have to – I think a lot of people forgot that Pittsburgh was ranked number 17 heading to this game. This game's on the road. It's hard to win football games on the road against ranked teams. Tennessee, I can count the number of times on my hand I've seen Tennessee win a game on the road against a ranked team. The last time the Tennessee won a game on the road against a ranked team outside of the SEC was Miami in 2003. The last time they did it at all.
We were literally talking about that on our last pod.
Exactly. Because I remember I was sitting here thinking about when's the last time they would have won a game like that, and that was Miami. The last time they beat a ranked opponent on the road was Auburn in 2018. So these wins haven't come around that often for the Tennessee football program. So, I'm going to take it any way I can get it.
Oh, yeah, and I feel like they deserve to be in the top 15 in the country right now. I feel like they earn it. They should have taken care of business against Akron. And against Florida, I feel like this reminds me a lot of the 2016 game, where Butch Jones kind of had his peak moment as a Tennessee football coach when he got that win. I think if Josh Heupel can get the win at home, I feel like it will solidify him as I don't say long term, but at least say kind of solidify him as like the football coach. I feel like it will give Tennessee a path not to win the East, but I feel like to kind of have a good year. I feel like winning Florida and have 3-0, I think will be not say they'll be like, oh, the year's done, but I feel like it will give solidifies Josh Heupel's path.
Absolutely, he's definitely solidified himself as a very solid coach. And this gives them a lot of momentum because you can prove, hey, we can go in, we can win these games, win top 25. And really, when you look at the rest of the schedule for the Vols, they can beat Florida, they can beat LSU, they can beat Kentucky. I mean, are they going to beat every single one of those teams? Maybe not, but we'll have to see. Right, the potential is there. Outside of Bama and Georgia, I think they can win all these games. But even then, with Bama, I mean, they looked suspect the other day, and I guess it's going to start transitioning over into those games, because outside of the Vols game, and obviously next week we'll have to talk way more about Falls, Florida. Of course, Tennessee plays Akron this week. They're 50-point favorites. As long as they come in and take care of their own business, they'll be fine. But obviously next week, probably the biggest home game for Tennessee since 2016. It's going to be absolutely massive. But looking around the college football landscape, the biggest game this weekend was Alabama at Texas. I'm going to be honest, heading to this game, I did not see any way Texas would hang in this game. I thought Bama was going to run into Austin and run them out of town. But that was not the case. It looked like early on Texas was the better team, especially Quinn Ewers. Their young quarterback was slinging the football around on the Alabama Crimson Tide, but he got injured early in the second quarter. He had a shoulder injury, knocked him out, and from then on, the rest of the game was an absolute defensive slugfest throughout the remainder of the game. And you know,
I,
Alabama
I
was able to cut it out.
and I feel like Steve Sarkisian kind of showed that he can build a strong program. I don't, if the boosters don't, you know, hyperventilate or want to speed it up or want to. But I feel like Steve Sarkisian can do a good job in Texas. If he, maybe two recruiting class and maybe Texas can be a contender because you know everybody was expecting Alabama to blown out to have like a 20, even 30, maybe 20-ish point, difference. But they fought it, and you said yourself, if the quarterback wasn't injured, maybe the result will be different. And it was interesting. Interesting how Nick Saban reacted to this game, especially when the game was over, because the players were celebrating and maybe doing provocating some actions, and he was like, "Have none of that," because he knows that this was an ugly win and was nothing to be provocative for.
Also, too, I think he's thinking that Texas is going to be in the SEC in a few years, so
Yeah,
you don't want to give them bulletin board material now because clearly, I mean, he said in his post game press conference that Texas would be a team in the upper half of the SEC right now, which I would agree with. They have way more talent than any of us realized. Just last year, it just wasn't gelling last year for whatever reason. But you got to remember, even with their 5-7 record, the majority of those losses were like one possession losses. So like they weren't executing at the end of games. Remember, they had like a 20+ point lead on Oklahoma. Like you don't do that if you don't have talent on Oklahoma. So uh, yeah, but I agree. If Quinn Ewers doesn't get injured, um, Texas wins the football game, and I think they win it easily. Um, because what shocked me the most was how inefficient Alabama's running attack was. I mean, they have Jameer Gibbs, who's a very talented receiving running back. He's not that great at running the football. Um, and this offensive line for Alabama might be the worst I've seen Alabama's offensive line in over a decade. I I was not impressed with it. I thought Bryce Young was having to run for his life quite often. And I'll say this: if Tennessee's defensive line shows up on the third Saturday of October, we're going to have a chance to be successful against this Alabama offense. Um, and plus the receivers too. I don't think these receivers were that impressive. Clearly, they haven't replaced Jameson Williams. They haven't portrayed or haven't replaced John Mechie. And this is the first time the Alabama receiving core hasn't had any true stars on it. I mean, probably since like 2015, 2014, 2013. It seems like every year Alabama has a Jalen Waddle, a a Julio Jones, a someone like that who is the go getter on the wide in the wide receiving core. They don't have that this year. So I think this is if you're going to be Alabama, this will have to be your year to do it because their offense looks. I mean, I'll be honest. So far, I think Georgia's offense looks better than Alabama's offense, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but Georgia's offense looks a lot better. But then again, we do have to ask how much better is Texas than Oregon? And I think Texas might be way, way ahead of Oregon. So, of course, Georgia, they have another big game this week at South Carolina. But for right now, Georgia definitely deserves to be the number one team in the country over Alabama.
yeah, I think so. I think that's why Georgia is the number one team. Only Georgia and Michigan State had shutout games. I know, and I know that both face it. Low tier college football programs. Georgia destroyed Stanford at home, and Michigan State had a really solid win over Akron. So I think Tennessee can rest solid. I think if they come out strong, they may be shut out again. But I think Georgia is the best football team in the country. But the big question is, who is the third best SEC program? Because we know Alabama and Georgia are first and second, but we all thought that Texas A&M were going to be the third. We're going to be the maybe the dark horse. But boy, oh boy, this we can prove wrong.
No, no, I think Michigan fans are breathing a huge sigh of relief because they're no longer the only people who have lost to Appalachian State. So Appalachian State, the Giant Killers, they slayed themselves with another giant Saturday. Went to College Station, and you look at the score, right? 17-14. It seems like it was a really close game, and it was. But you have to look into the stats. I'm going to pull up these stats real quick. App State versus Texas A&M
I I,
because the stats they have to
I
be
have
seen to believe.
I have here. So in terms of you know third down, only two conversions for 8 times, and and oh my god, like rushing, they had only 18 rush attempts.
Yeah, I mean, Appalachian State had 22 first downs to A&M's 9. In terms of total plays, um, Appalachian State ran 82 plays, and uh, Texas A&M only ran 38. Texas A&M, they let Appalachian State run twice as many plays on them in their
and
home
and,
stadium.
and the total yards 315 versus 186. If you show that stats, would be like, okay, that's Texas A&M and that's Appalachian State. No,
Yeah, time of possession, App State 41 minutes. 41 minutes. That's almost 3 quarters. Texas A&M only had the ball for a quarter in this football game. I it's alarming how outclassed Texas A&M was on offense in this game. And it really, I think that begs the question: is Jimbo Fisher's offense washed at this point? I think it's absolutely washed. Like the offense has not changed since the early 2010s. Yeah, it worked amazingly with Jameis Winston back at Florida State. This thing ain't working anymore. That they don't have any good quarterbacks. I mean, Haynes King is not that good of a quarterback. Um, it's just it's insane with all the talent they have at receiver, the talent they have in the backfield, all of those 5 stars they've brought in over the years. This is the best they can do. You know, it's unbelievable.
I mean, some might say, oh, the this recruiting class was really good. Maybe in 1 or 2 years will pay it off, but you know, it doesn't matter if you have a great recruiting class for 1 or 2 years. I mean, they lost to Appalachian State now. They were the number 6 team in the country now.
And this is not like Jimbo Fisher's first year or second year. He's been there for 5 years. They're paying him $10 million a year to lose to Appalachian State in year 5.
Not even Bud Jones, managed that in his year 4. He came close. He won in overtime.
But he escaped. Uh, Texas A&M could not escape, and now they have Miami coming to town this weekend. And I'm gonna be honest, I think Miami struggled this past weekend. They were in a close game with Southern Miss at halftime, and they ran away with it in the second half. Um, I wouldn't be shocked though if Miami goes into College Station, wins, and then A&M is 1-2, staring down the gauntlet of an SEC schedule, and then the wheels could fall apart because they got to play the entire SEC West, who all outside of Auburn look better than Texas A&M right now. I mean, Auburn right now looks like the only team in the SEC West that is worse than A&M. I know LSU lost last week, but I think LSU right now is better than A&M. Of course, Alabama obviously is. Both of them Mississippi schools are, and Arkansas. And I think Arkansas, outside of Alabama, is the second best team in the West right now. Because Arkansas has had 2 very solid wins, 2 pretty dominant wins. They probably have the best rushing attack in the SEC, with KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. And they seem like the most physical team to me in the SEC. Because Arkansas, they blew out South Carolina the other day. They were just punishing Spencer Rattler and that South Carolina offense. And to me, we were talking about like who's the third best team in the SEC. My vote would be Arkansas right now for that spot over Kentucky and Tennessee. And I think Kentucky and Tennessee are just right behind them, fighting for the fourth spot.
And let's quick hear what Jimbo Fisher had to say, because he had a lot to say when the season wasn't still preseason.
Have to go back out right now. Fundamentally, got a very good Miami team coming in here. It's going to get our attention very, very quickly, and does from right now. We have to go play well, but more important, we got to practice well so we can take those habits to the field and execute and do the things we need to do. Our guys know exactly what they're doing. And if you look at it, it's not just everybody says the quarterback room, but some of the mistakes, they were ready to do some things. They were right and miss a block, get a route too deep, or get a route, or they cover a guy and get into the next guy. I mean, no, they know it. They can see it, do it, and we had throws to be made, and we missed some throws. I mean, there's a physical part of that too. They know exactly what to do.
That's Jimbo Fisher said they know exactly what they're doing.
I don't know. I don't know if they know exactly what they're doing, though. I mean, here's what it seems like to me from the outside. It seems like this is a football program right now that's so focused. They beat Bama last year, so they think they're all high and mighty now. They got to get the number one recruiting class because of NIL. And, they spent all offseason fighting with Alabama. That they forgot that they actually have to play football. They forgot that you actually have to put in the work in the offseason and put in the work in the field to win football games. Just because you have all this talent doesn't mean it translates.
And I feel like they still are hyped up not only for the Alabama game last year, but remember 2020 they came this close to playing for the college football semifinals. Some argue they deserve. I was maybe the few ones that I felt they should have been in instead of Ohio State. I remember how much discussions I had when I was at Rock Salt Sport. But anyway, that hyped up even more Jimbo Fisher's in coming into the next 2021, and then you mentioned that win over Alabama, but all that is forgotten when you lose to Appalachian State at home.
Yeah, I mean that destroys all kinds of goodwill right there. He'll have to go on a tear this year in the SEC to make up for that loss. Actually, starting this week, you got to beat Miami this week. Now, this is a must-win football game for Texas A&M, because if they lose at home this week, I don't know if they'll make a bowl game. I really do not know if they'll make a bowl game, because
even though they play Auburn, UMass, and LSU the last 3 games, do you still think if they lost this game, they won't make a bowl game?
Well, if they lose this week, because I'm just taking a quick look at their schedule. Right now, I wouldn't pick them to beat Miami. I wouldn't pick them to beat Arkansas. I wouldn't pick them to beat Miss State. Wouldn't pick them to beat Alabama. So that would put them at 1-5. South Carolina, maybe. Okay, I'll give you Carolina 2-5. You lose to Ole Miss 2-6. I think they lose to Florida right now 2-7. I think they can beat Auburn and UMass. That's 4-7. Then lose to LSU 4-8. Right now, this team, when I look at their schedule, they look like a 4-8 football team to me right now.
So do you think they were a little bit exaggerated coming in number 6 team in the country?
Clearly, look, they'll probably finish better than 4-8, but they've proven they're nowhere near a top 10 team. And I don't see how they're going to be able to fix their offense in order to be able to be a top 10 team. Because it's clear that, A&M's strength for years has been that defense with Mike Elko. But even then, if we go back to the stats, they let Appalachian State just destroy them on the ground. They let up, 181 yards rushing on the ground. They were getting gashed. Appalachian State was just getting small yards, and they couldn't do anything to stop it. And these other SEC teams with much better offenses are going to come in and really, I think, punish them. And if you don't have the offense to match that, like if that offense doesn't improve at all, they could go 4-8, 5-7, which I think that would probably get Jimbo fired, if we're being honest. Because I don't think the boosters down at Texas A&M are going to have that much patience for a record like that.
Oh yeah, and just a big shout out to Bruno Slonik. And we're gonna go to baseball real quick. He's giving us update about Arrow, about Judge, the new hitting number 56 and 37 home runs for the Yankees. But in terms of, I feel like I feel it would be silly to fire Jimbo Fisher right now with the recruiting class. If he can come into the boosters and be like, "Hey, I know he had a bad season, but give me one more year. I had the number one recruiting class, but if he comes out the following year and I feel like go 6-6, like even 7-5, I think he's gonna get fired. I think
Well, I mean, maybe the argument there could be, well, maybe this will be some other coaches' chance to work with that recruiting class, because if we don't see any modernization of the offense, then you have to move on. I think, because you can't be paying $10 million a year for constant 8-4 records, for constantly losing to Appalachian State if you're Texas A&M. Because you got to remember, the one advantage A&M has had for a decade now is Texas is not in the SEC. Oklahoma is not in the SEC. And those two programs are coming to the SEC, and you're going to lose that advantage. And now you're going to be relegated because, I mean, recruits are going to have the option to choose between Austin and College Station. And a lot of them are going to choose to live in Austin. And also now Texas A&M will be the second-tier Texas team in the SEC, and whatever chance you had to be a powerhouse program to make up your ground on the Texas Longhorns is gone. So I think if you're Texas A&M, you got to make bold moves right now in order to establish yourself against the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, because the Aggies, they want to establish themselves as like the Texas team in the SEC, and they had almost a decade to do that, but they never. I don't even remember. I don't think did they even went to play for the SEC championship while they were in the SEC.
No, A&M has not been to Atlanta once. Remember, Missouri has been to Atlanta twice, and we don't think of Missouri as a powerhouse at all. But Texas A&M, the much more established football program, has been 0 times.
Yeah.
Zero. So
So
that's
so let's
that's a tough pill to swallow if you're a Texas A&M fan. Missouri has 2 more appearances than you. That's very sad.
yeah,
But very quickly, on our last college football topic here, what's going on with Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame, Gus? Marshall, like, okay, it's one thing to lose to Ohio State week 1, and then they looked very competitive. That defense was amazing in week 1 against a high-powered offense Ohio State team. But Marshall, we are Marshall. You lost to the Marshall Thundering Herd in South Bend, and now Marcus Freeman is 0-3 as a head coach, 0-2 to start this season. What's going on with Notre Dame? It seems to me it's almost similar with A&M. They have no offense. They don't have a dynamic quarterback, and maybe losing Brian Kelly was way worse than we thought.
and maybe they were more hyped up than they should, as I make that claim to Texas A&M too. I feel like you know maybe it was a reality check weekend. It felt like a reality check weekend for a lot of football programs. But Texas A&M and Notre Dame were the top because they lost to unranked low tier football programs that they had to pay. That's the thing. They paid those schools to play there. That was the joke when Tennessee lost to Georgia State. But that's worse when you're on the top 10 and you pay a school to play with you and you lose.
Absolutely. Tyler Buchner, the quarterback for Notre Dame, 18 to 32, 201, 2 interceptions. This guy's not a D1 caliber quarterback. I'm sorry. I watched him against Ohio State, against Marshall. Just not a caliber quarterback for this level, especially if Notre Dame wants to make the playoffs, wants to be competitive. Obviously, that's done. Notre Dame is not making any playoffs this year. They're not even going to be close to making the playoffs. They will have to run the table just to make a New Year's Six game. And I don't think they're going to do that. And the question then for them becomes, well, how many games is Notre Dame going to win? When you look at the schedule, they can probably beat California this week. California is not very good. They're probably worse than Marshall. But then the weeks after that, at North Carolina might not have a defense, but they have a really good offense. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be able to outscore them. BYU, they just beat Baylor. They're a really good football team. I don't think they're beating BYU right now. I think they'll beat Stanford. I think they beat UNLV. So that's what 3-4. At Syracuse, we just saw what they did to Louisville, a Louisville team that, credit to Jason Wyrick and his Cardinals, they came back and beat UCF last week. So Louisville not as bad as we thought they were. That's a problem. That could be a loss. Versus Clemson, definitely a loss. You're not. Notre Dame may not score against Clemson. Now, Clemson doesn't have a great offense in their own right, but it's at least they have something going on offense. Whereas Notre Dame has nothing going on offense. Navy is terrible. They'll beat Navy. Boston College isn't very good. I think they can beat them. But then USC, and obviously we haven't seen them against a great team yet. Stanford is not very good. But that they could have the best offense in the entire country this year, potentially. We see what Caleb Williams is lightening it up. Jordan Addison is incredible, and Lincoln Riley, no matter what Oklahoma fans try to tell you, is still the best offensive coach in the country.
I mean, look what they did with not one but two. Look what they did with two, making two quarterbacks number one draft. But yeah, I feel like Notre Dame is gonna make a bowl game, but the question is which and how the fans will expect that. And last topic of college football, I did not see that coming. I remember talking about on the preseason pod that we had a little bit good expectations for Scott Frost, but that all gone when Nebraska had another embarrassing loss now to Georgia Southern, 45-42 at home. Uh, he was fired on Sunday, 3 games into his fifth season, and it was interesting enough that if Nebraska waited 3 weeks, Nebraska would only have to pay $7.5 million buyout, but now they're gonna have to pay $15 million to Scott Frost to stay, hang out, do really good, But I feel like Nebraska. I mean, it's just sad to see a really good football program that won multiple national titles that lost. I think they're the bottom of the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, they seem more lost right now than Tennessee even was. Because remember, Nebraska hasn't even been to a bowl game since like 2016, 17, something like that. I mean, it's been a long time. Like, at least, and Tennessee, we've been able to at least have moments of turnarounds. And we hope that what we're going for right now is the true turnaround to making Tennessee a legitimate football program again. Nebraska hasn't had any hope like ever in the past like 10 years. Like they just they're in the wilderness right now. I don't know how they get back. I mean, Nebraska is not a fertile recruiting state. They kind of out there on an island. They're in the Big Ten. They're never going to be able to get better recruits than Ohio State, than Michigan, than even a Wisconsin. I don't know what they do. So I really think Nebraska is kind of stuck as a middle program now. They're kind of Minnesota. They're kind of Iowa. I don't see Nebraska ever replicating what they did back in the 20th century.
Do you think if they go to the Big 12, they can make a splash?
Yeah, I mean, that's why they were successful before. What's the Big 12? Because when they were in the Big 12, they could go to Texas. And that's where they got a lot of their great players back in the 90s, was in Texas. But when they left the Big 12, they lost Texas. And now you look at the Big 10 pipeline, it's the Midwest. Not as many great players there. So Nebraska's screwed. I think they're straight up screwed. I'm not sure who they're going to be able to go get. My number one option, honestly, in terms of realism, of course, people are trying to throw around like Urban Meyer and stuff. He's not going to Lincoln, Nebraska. Come on, guys. I think your number one option, honestly, Lance Leopold. He's the coach at Kansas. He turned around the Buffalo program, made them really, really good. And Kansas, they beat Texas last year. They just went on the road and stunned West Virginia. I'm shocked Neil Brown at West Virginia hasn't joined Scott Frost on the fired bus this weekend, because he probably should have been fired too. Like, West Virginia is a joke. But yeah, I don't know what Nebraska does.
And that one hurts the most because I felt it went. I remember when Scott Frost was hired, it felt just right. Everybody thought, what a hire, great alum from the school. He had done a tremendous job at UCF, but that won't hurt. And I feel like, as you said, Nebraska's just stuck and they don't know what they're doing. And, that's the thing. I feel like, they're going to have a terrible season. But let's move on to the pros.
You have NFL first weekend of the Professional Football League season, and it was certainly an interesting one. Lots of sloppy play, lots of missed kicks in important situations. At first, this is Tuesday, so I want to go back to last night's game, the Broncos Seahawks. Russell Wilson returns to Seattle. He gets booed by his former fans, but perhaps the biggest egregious just stuff of the night came from Nathaniel Hackett and the Denver Broncos. Gus, what was he doing on that last drive? My God, you have all 3 timeouts. You're paying your quarterback $245 million to throw behind the line of scrimmage. You're not throwing it down. A receiver did not catch a ball for Denver in this game until midway through the second quarter when Jerry Jeudy received a 67-yard touchdown pass. And then, you have a 4th and 5 from the Seahawks 45. You have a minute left in the 4th quarter. And you just sit on it. You let the clock run all the way down to 20 seconds. You call a timeout, and then you bring out Brandon McManus, who is a very, very good kicker. But very few kickers in the history of professional football can hit a 64-yard field goal. And, of course, he misses it. And now you're sitting there with all 3 timeouts, and the game's over because there's like 10 seconds left. That was the dumbest end-of-game situational awareness I have ever seen from a coach.
And it's funny. I feel like Seattle fans right now, they know they're going to have a terrible season, but they don't care anymore. They won the game they wanted to win this year. They won the revenge game. I felt like the fans that left Lumen Field on Monday felt proud. They felt that that's the highest this season could ever get, because they know Geno Smith is not going to take them anywhere. They know they're going to be at best 3 or 4 win team, but they won the game that they won. They won the revenge game.
Absolutely, the season is a success for Seattle. And for 1 week, they get to be atop the NFC West because everyone else lost in their division. So this is going to be the greatest week ever to be a Seattle fan. It's probably just as good as winning. Well, it's not better than winning the Super Bowl, obviously, but this is second tier to winning the Super Bowl is winning this particular game. Second into Russell Wilson. I think Pete Carroll. This will probably keep him employed for next season because if you're Pete Carroll, I would keep Pete through next season because you're probably going to have a really high draft pick this next year. You'll get to go out, select a rookie quarterback, bring him in, and you can go from there because there's still a lot of talent on this team. You still got Jamal Adams on the defense. Obviously he's hurt now. We'll see how long he's out. I haven't seen the news on how long he's going to be out, but you still have 2 really good receivers. There's a lot of potential there for a quarterback to come in and have success immediately next year in Seattle. Definitely a stopgap year, but for Denver, Denver had every opportunity to win that game, and they literally fumbled away every opportunity. I think Denver will still be a really good team, but they got to get it together and got to get it together fast. Just a terrible, terrible performance on the road in front of everyone. And it really just feels like the AFC West is the Chiefs and everyone else. And, of course, this week the Chargers go to the Chiefs on Thursday night. So we'll see if Justin Herbert and the Bolts can really hang with Kansas City this year. Because you got to remember, both of those games last year between the Chiefs and Chargers went to overtime. But what the Chiefs did to Arizona on Sunday was just insane. Like Patrick Mahomes, you think about it, he threw for 5 touchdowns on Sunday. If he does that for 17 games, I'm trying to think. That's, 85 touchdowns? Which, he's not going to do that But man, that Chiefs offense without Tyreek Hill doesn't look like it's lost a step at all.
Yeah, it's I feel like the AFC West, it's all for grabs for the Kansas City Chiefs. They had a good win over the Cardinals. Mahomes throwing 5 touchdowns and hammering the Cardinals that I feel like could be a contender. It's interesting. But one game that I feel like was very hyped up, but in the end it fell short. It was the Cleveland Browns and the Carolina Panthers because everybody was expecting the Panthers, especially Baker Mayfield, to have a great performance. I think he was average, 16 carries, 16 catches for 27 attempts, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Jacoby Brissett, he got a touchdown. He didn't have any interceptions. But I feel like what a great performance by Nick Chubb. 22 carries, 141 yards. It just shows that Cleveland's offense as a whole, as a overall, can still do better, even with the average quarterback. So I feel like it was a great win for the Browns.
Yeah, and also shout out to their kicker, rookie kicker Cade York from LSU, hit a 60-yard field goal in this game to win it. So an absolutely clutch performance. But Baker Mayfield, through 3.5 quarters, yeah, he was terrible. He did not play really well. The pocket presence wasn't good, but he turned it on, actually. He had a really nice touchdown pass to Robbie Anderson. That was, I think, like a 75-yarder. And he was moving the ball up and down the field, and they had taken the lead on Carolina. It was like on Cleveland. It was 23-21 before Cleveland came back to win that game with the last second field goal. The 26-24 win for the Browns. But yeah, I mean, I think Baker, he's not going to, I think he won't lead Carolina to too many victories. But I think this turned out to be a really good game at the end between Cleveland and Carolina, even if it was lackluster. But I think for Cleveland, it's clear that Jacoby Brissett isn't able to take this team to a championship. I do think the offense was anemic at times, and the jury's still out to see if Deshaun Watson
Go ahead. Sorry.
if Deshaun Watson comes back, if he'll be able to elevate that offense any. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. I'll say this: outside of the Chiefs, the most impressive team of the week probably was Buffalo. They absolutely came in and destroyed the defending Super Bowl champions, the Rams. And obviously, everyone wants to talk about Josh Allen. He was phenomenal. Like Josh Allen just was dicing up the Rams. They had 2 interceptions. One of them was not his fault. One of them was, but outside of those 2 picks, basically a flawless game for Josh Allen and the Bills' offense. But I think what was more impressive is the Bills' defense, especially their pass rush, headlined by Von Miller. They made Matt Stafford's night terrible, absolutely miserable. And if the Bills can play like that, I think we're heading to a Bills-Chiefs AFC title game that will determine it all. And that's what I feel like this whole season might be priming ourselves up to, is that Bills-Chiefs rematch. And really, honestly, I almost kind of want to now just see a Bills-Chiefs best of 7, because it feels like those two right now are clearly the 2 best teams in the league.
Oh yeah, I feel like they're the top of the AFC, and having a rematch, especially with all they provided in the AFC division game, I could even imagine what it can do in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, I mean that has best game of all time potential right there. I feel like between these 2 teams, because these 2 teams are stacked and they are loaded. Well, I've been kind of avoiding it up until now, but we got to talk about my team, the Tennessee Titans. Oh my goodness, what in the world are we doing? Okay, so we got off to a good start. It was 13-0 at halftime. Offense was anemic, but hey, the defense was doing what you should do to Daniel Jones, shut him out. But then Saquon Barkley rose from the dead and looked like his 2018 self all over again, just started running wild, which is good to see. I'm glad to see Saquon Barkley with all of his talent that he is back. But still, the Titans. Oh my! I'm not even going to blame the defense because Saquon Barkley went crazy. Daniel Jones actually was being smart with the football and giving up only 22 points. You should be able to beat the New York Giants. This offense is atrocious. It's terrible, and I don't know whether I want to blame Todd Downing more, the offensive coordinator, or blame Ryan Tannehill. Because after the AFC divisional round last year with Cincinnati, I wasn't very happy with Tannehill. I thought basically with his free picks, we had screwed up the entire season with that performance. And now it's like, I want to go get Russell Wilson or another quarterback, and we need to upgrade this position if we're gonna be a true Super Bowl contender. And then what do? We don't upgrade the quarterback position. We let AJ Brown walk, who himself had a great day for the Philadelphia Eagles in Detroit in week 1. So I was already kind of mad heading into this game at 425. Say I just watched AJ Brown light it up for Philadelphia. Well, anyway, I'm like, okay, Traylon Burks better be the truth. And then what I see is an offense that's unable to move the ball consistently. And some of the play calling, I mean, there is a 3rd and 1 with about 6 minutes left in the game. 3rd and 1. You're up by 7 points at this point, 20-13. You have Derrick Henry in the backfield. And I know he didn't have the greatest day, but he was in the second half, he was getting some pretty good runs in on the Giants defense. You run an in around with a tight end on 3rd and 1 with Derrick Henry in the backfield, which directly leads to the Giants' go-ahead drive, which forces you now to have to go into a 2-minute drive down 1 to get Randy Bullock into field goal range to win the game. And then when you are on that last second drive, you waste your last time out inexplicably because your offense isn't set. So then what you have to do is with 18 seconds, you have to run a quarterback sneak to the middle of the field, have Tannehill drop so you can quickly get back to the line, spike the ball, and then try a field goal that you miss. Todd Downing should not be calling plays anymore for the Tennessee Titans. At the bare minimum. Last year it was clear that in multiple games his offense couldn't do anything. The play calling at times was really bad, despite us being 12-5. And what was going on last year often is Derrick Henry would just bail you out. And hopefully as we see throughout the season, Derrick Henry will continue to just be able to bail you out because he's Derrick Henry. But there is no way in chance, no way in heck, this Titans team is coming anywhere close to a championship with Todd Downing as your offensive coordinator. And then the question has to be asked, do you have any chance of getting close to a championship with Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback? I don't think that answer is yes either. He was throwing multiple balls into the dirt throughout this game. The accuracy wasn't very good. And
his chance was last season was his big chance. I feel like, I think he had I know he came out in a kind of nobody expected to be hit that good. Everybody thought Marcus Mariota will be the future. He kind of took the position, but I feel like if the Titans really want to be a contender and not a pretender, have to upgrade the quarterback.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, I don't think Malik Willis is the answer right now. He clearly has a lot of development he's got to do. So I'm not going to come on here and say we need to put in Malik Willis right now because really I don't want him to go onto the field until there's a different offensive coordinator. So I think the first thing we have to do is change offensive coordinator. But I really hope that Mike Vrabel makes the right decision and John Robinson makes the right decision because they better start making some right decisions soon or there's going to be some heat placed on their heads based off some of their other off-the-field decision-making. But it's just week 2, so hopefully we'll see a turnaround in week 2. But newsflash, Gus, the Titans have to go to the Bills in week 2.
Wow. But before we talk about week 2, so our score in predictions were tied. You got 4 games right. The you got we both got the Saints right. You got the both got the Ravens and Jets. You got the Chargers, and you also got the Vikings right.
Oh, nice.
So, and I got it right. The Bills, the Falcons too, the Eagles, and also the Ravens. So we were tied 4-4 on our prediction matchup.
Right. So we both only got 4 games right for the entire week.
Yeah, we both got it right. The Ravens at Jets. We both got it right. The Falcons, the Saints at Falcons, and that was kind of like. And I got the Bills right, and you got the Vikings right. But the rest were a slugfest. We truly, uh, really. I feel like the worst mistake was Colts at Texas. Nobody expected the Texans to at least, came. They were close to win the game. At least Colts tied, but I feel like Jason Warwick definitely is not happy about it.
Oh no, they. I know multiple Colts friends. They were not happy with the result. No one in the AFC South is happy right now. Maybe except for the Texans. The Texans probably overachieved in Week 1. The Jaguars, honestly, they looked better to me this Week 1 than they did last year. But I mean, they still lost. So, but I think Trevor Lawrence at least has shown some improvement, in my opinion.
It's all about that. So let's real quick predictions. Chargers at Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Give me the Chargers. Give me the Chargers. I think they're gonna go 2-0. I think that's the game for Justin Herbert to prove himself.
All right, next game we have Jets and Browns. I'm gonna go Browns.
As much as I wanna say let's go Jets, I think let the Browns. Like I think they're gonna be 2-0. It's the first time they're 1-0 since 2004.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty insane to think about. But definitely the Jets. Joe Flacco. Why do they have Joe Flacco throw 59 times? That made no sense. You draft a running back in the second round just to throw 60 times with your backup quarterback.
I guess the X law doesn't work in the NFL as much as it works here in Brazil. Joe Flacco. He was a legend in Baltimore. He got he got a Super Bowl title, but as a as a Jets quarterback, he's not near inspiring.
No.
So
All right,
Commanders and Lions. Wow, that's gonna be a slugfest.
give me the Lions. I think the Lions. I know they're lost in Week 1, but that offense actually is not too bad. DeAndre Swift lit it up, and Amon-Ra St. Brown's the truth. Give me the Lions.
Give me the tie. I think this is gonna be a tie game.
That would be fitting, wouldn't it?
Give me the tie. That game is gonna be tie.
That would be hilarious.
I think that all the scenario for a tie game is that one. So give me the tie.
All right, what's up next? We have
Saints at Buccaneers at Saints.
give me New Orleans in the upset. The Saints have had the Buccaneers number for a couple of years now. For whatever reason, the Bucs cannot beat the Saints. So give me the Saints.
Give me the Buccaneers. I think Tom Brady's gonna go 2-0.
Yeah, I think honestly that Week 1 performance is more in the defense, and we didn't really have time to talk about the Cowboys, but oh boy,
It reminds me.
all that hype.
They're gonna be on the bottom of the division. Giants, Panthers at Giants. Give me the Giants.
Give me the Panthers. I think the Giants, they benefited off of a lot of times mistakes. I think the Panthers found something late in that game that will help them win it in Week 2.
So who you chose?
Panthers.
Oh, I'm gonna go Giants. So Steelers and Patriots. Wow, Used to be a really big matchup, but I feel like give me the Patriots.
I'll take Patriots as well. I think the Steelers, I don't see their defense replicating what they did this week. Plus, they lost TJ Watt. So I think that's going to hurt them a lot.
Colts at Jaguars. Give me the Jags. I think they're gonna win it again.
As much as I want to pick the Jags here, I have to pick the Colts. I think the Colts are the better team, but the Colts, they do struggle in Jacksonville. They haven't won there in several years. But they got to break it at some point. Give me the Colts to win it here.
But real quick, I forgot. You got the Steelers, right?
Patriots.
Oh, Patriots. Oh, say, I'm sorry, I had it right. Dolphins at Baltimore.
Ooh, this will be a good one. Dolphins' offense looked really good in the first half. It didn't really do anything in the second half. But I think Lamar Jackson is a man with a mission this year. I think he's obviously betting on himself for a bigger contract next year. I think Lamar's going to ball in this one. Give me the Ravens.
Give me the Ravens too. Give me the Ravens too. Oh, that one is obvious. I feel like Falcons at Rams.
I think the Rams, they will come out and just destroy the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta, I mean, another double-digit lead blown. How do you do this? It's an art. It's an absolute art for Atlanta. How they blow leads.
No, and how Atlanta got, I feel like, into this. I call it Bill Buckner downhole. Like when you lose a game that terribly, that traumatic, I think the Atlanta football team, Atlanta Falcons, is gonna be traumatized for years to come. And the way they lose is like, as you say, become like a hallmark. They always manage to get leads and then blew them. That's worse. I feel like that's even worse than being a blown up, because at least a blown up, at least you expect to be okay. This team is gonna be bad, but they create hope and they destroy all the hope.
Yeah, it's like a catch-22, right? You have to play well early to develop a lead, but if you're Atlanta, you don't want to even develop a lead because then you're just your team. Okay, we're the Falcons. We're up by double digits right now. We're probably going to find a way to blow this, and then they do. It is just true. I've never seen anything like it. I have never seen anything like it.
As you say, it's an art. Um, it's a division matchup. Seattle Seahawks going to Santa Clara facing the 49ers.
This was probably the most puzzling result of the week between the 49ers and the Bears. I'm going to chalk it up to the weather. I think they were not ready to play on a terrible field in Chicago in a monsoon. The 49ers are a lot better than this. I think Trey Lance is a lot better than what he's shown. Give me San Francisco.
It means the Seahawks. I think they're going to go 2-0.
That's a very interesting pick there. I think San Francisco is way better than they looked, but that might just be all right. Probably your marquee game of Saturday or Sunday. I mean, Bengals and Cowboys. Man, Joe Burrow, yikes! 4 picks in his first game this year. Is there a hangover for Cincinnati?
No, I won't. I won't worry. He's a guy. He's gonna deep throw. He's gonna have the edge. And you remember his first season as a pro, he threw a lot of interceptions, but then he came back and won a Super Bowl the next year. So I won't be worried about. I feel like in this game, as much as I would like the Cowboys to win, the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, without Dak Prescott, I don't see Cooper Rush being able to outduel Joe Burrow. Give me the Bengals.
Texans at Broncos. I think Broncos has to come out and beat really solid.
I agree. I think the Broncos absolutely will. They'll beat them solidly. Nathaniel Hackett might be the first coach ever to be a new head coach at his first home game and get booed.
Yeah. Cardinals at Las Vegas Raiders.
Raiders, Cardinals. They're getting their second half form off the ground early here, and plus Javante Adams is still Javante Adams. Uh, Thank you to my fantasy league for letting him fall to me in the second round. Uh, that was phenomenal of y'all. Give me the Raiders.
Um, Give me the Cardinals.
Yeah, I feel like if the Cardinals, if they don't win this game, then Cliff Kingsbury is going to start getting in trouble. I feel like because they could start spiraling.
And then at football, the Chicago Bears going to Green Bay, Wisconsin to face the Packers.
Ooh. The Bears definitely look better than I thought they would, especially on defense. Justin Fields had some good plays. Only problem is they don't have an offensive line. And this is still a Lambeau. It's still Aaron Rodgers. Give me the Packers at home.
Me too. Give me the Packers at home. So the doubleheader in the Monday Night Football, Titans at the Buffalo Bills.
Bills, I can't even. I mean, look. Here's the thing. This would be the game type of game the Titans would win, right? Because like they, for some reason, they like to lose games like the Giants, and they'll turn around and beat a team like the Bills.
That's why
But
give me the. That's why give me the Titans. That's why give me the
I
Titans.
hope you're right. I hope I lose this one, but I just that would require an overhaul of the offense that I don't think you can do in 1 week. And plus, the Bills have 3 days of rest on the Titans, so hopefully I'm wrong. I'm not very high on the Titans right now.
And last but not least, to close out week 2, the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Philadelphia to face the Eagles.
This might be the hardest game of the week to choose, honestly, because I feel like both of these teams were really impressive in week 1. Because the Vikings are one of those teams that honestly I've been kind of high on this offseason because that offense, when you look at it on paper, should be really, really good. But the Eagles should be really, really good too. It's on the road. It's a Monday night primetime game in Philly. That crowd, the Eagles crowd is going to be nuts. Give me the Eagles.
Yeah, I got the Eagles too. I think they're gonna go 2-0, and it looks like they're gonna be the top contender in their division.
Yeah, I think that was my preseason prediction. I had the Eagles winning the NFC, so they look like the best team to me so far. Although their defense is kind of concerning, but offensively, Jalen Hurts looks awesome. AJ Brown looks incredible in that offense, which makes me very sad. I mean, I'm happy for him, but I'm just sad that he looks amazing in that offense because they actually throw the ball to him multiple times a football game. They throw the ball downfield to AJ Brown multiple times a game. A novel concept with a guy like AJ Brown. But anyway, that's just certainly seeing how the Eagles use him and then watching the Titans lay an egg against the New York Giants has my confidence in the Titans right now at rock bottom, the lowest I've had it in years at this point.
Wow.
At least we got the balls. At least we have the balls.
Yeah, they're gonna. They. I, I. I mean, they should win. I think big chance of winning. But it's. Well, I mean, what a weekend of football. Another great weekend coming on. But let's real quick shift to Brazil because there was another week of Brasileirão, the Brazilian Championship. Palmeiras got a kind of a dramatic win on Saturday over Juventude to extend his lead, to keep his lead to 8 points. Now, second place Internacional got a win 1-0 over Cuiabá. Corinthians, Sao Paulo got the derby tied. I think both were happy with the result, especially Sao Paulo after having a dramatic game on Thursday and qualify for the Sul-Americana final. They're gonna face uh, Del Valle, but you know, I think Palmeiras title is a matter. It's not. It's not. The question is not if they're gonna win. Is when they're gonna win. I think they're gonna. By the last 4 or 5, by week 32, 33, they're gonna get the title. I think they're gonna win. I mean, they have a interesting game, a derby versus Santos that fired his coach. Santos is like all over the place. They got Carilli, Fabian Bustos, and now Lisca. Santos season, they're gonna get their fourth head coach this season. They're all over the place. I don't think they're gonna get relegated. I think they have enough talent to keep, especially in Marcos Leonardo, and I think they have a good offense. But I don't know. Santos is worrying me because they lost 3 out of the last 5 games. I think they're too rushed to fire the coach, even though the coach was immediately hired by another team in the Brazilian Championship, Havaí, that is in the third last position, that was in 18. But I think Palmeiras are going to win on Sunday. They had
Here, coaches
what?
this year: Santos or Nebraska.
Oh my God, Santos and Nebraska. They're interesting. You know why? Both had really success in the past. Both had really good talent, but they lived the past. Santos and Nebraska had flashes of good moments, but they both stuck in the past. They both go coach after coach after coach, try to find the answer, but they're just trying to create an illusion for the fans. But Santos is in the moment. They're stuck, like Nebraska. They're stuck. They are the, the last 2 seasons, they could even qualified for the playoffs in the state championship, back to back years. One year be like, oh, it was a slip up, we didn't start well, but back to back years that you don't even make the playoffs in the state championship when you don't
I
have
mean,
the
it feels
top.
like to me, for at least from the Astros perspective, that's basically the equivalent of not being bowl eligible 2 straight years in a row.
Yes, yes. For me, yes, yes. Not making the playoffs in a state championship is like not being able. It's not making bowl eligibility. And I feel like Santos and Nebraska is stuck in the past, running coach after coach. And I feel like they don't have an answer. They cannot find good players. They thought Ricardo Goulart was the answer, but he was booed out. He was tired of not playing and then playing his position. Now he's in Bahia in the second division. So Santos is all over the place. And just I finish up Brazil sports this week. We have the Brazilian Cup. São Paulo has to pull up a miracle to qualify because they lost 3-1 at home last month. I think they can. I think they're gonna give a hard time to Flamengo. I think they're gonna give a hard time. Maybe they get close, but I think Flamengo's gonna qualify. I think it's gonna be like a 2-1 Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo wins, but Flamengo get qualified. And what a game's gonna be on Thursday! I was so happy when I got the text that I got my credential approved for the Corinthians Fluminense semifinal. They got tied 2-2 in Maracanã. Corinthians might be a little bit favored because they have a more solid team, but Fluminense has, a very experienced team. A team they're used to playing on this kind of game, like William, Felipe Melo, and they're playing really well right now. Cano, their striker, absolutely amazing. Excited. I think Corinthians qualify, but maybe go to penalties. I think it's gonna go to penalties. Corinthians qualifies. So that's the Brazil sports week, and I'm excited for this. So, real quick, I know Nick, you don't follow up a lot, but your predictions on the Brazilian Cup, Flamengo or Sao Paulo, and then Corinthians or Fluminense.
For the championship, give me Flamingo, and then on the second one, give me Fluminense.
Oh, so it's gonna be a real. If that happens, it will be historic. Both
Yeah.
teams, they're big rivals. Like they're such a rivals that Flamengo anthem has Fluminense mention on it, but they never met in the playoffs in a national competition. Only in the state championship. They never play each other. Not even in the quarterfinals, semifinals, round of 32 in any national or international tournament. So if they make it to the Brazilian Cup, it's going to be the biggest matchup in real history with those teams. So I think it's going to be a really crazy matchup. So, real quick, I know we have to end it in about 4 minutes. So, your hot takes.
All right, so really quick, mine's NASCAR related hot take. So Kyle Busch, one of the most successful drivers of his generation, probably the most successful driver of his generation, he announced today that he is going to Richard Childress Racing. Now, if you're not familiar with NASCAR, this is the team that Dale Earnhardt Sr. on the free car. That's what he used to drive in back when he was alive and dominating in NASCAR, won 76 races. But ever since his death in 2001, RCR has not been the greatest team. Kevin Harvick had a lot of success with them, but especially when Harvick left, they have fallen off. But they've kind of been building back up recently. Tyler Reddick, especially, has been really, really good. He's won 2 races this year. Austin Dillon has won a couple of races in the free car here and there. But Kyle Busch has the potential to bring Richard Childress back to an elite level. They haven't been at in over 20 years because Kyle Busch is an elite driver. And I think this is a grave mistake by Toyota to not resign him, to not keep him in the Toyota pipeline. And it only bolsters Chevrolet. Like Chevrolet by far right now has the best driver lineup between Hendrick Motorsports and Richard Childress Racing and Trackhouse. So I think this is a huge deal for NASCAR moving forward. Also, just another quick note on NASCAR that we didn't get to last week. Shout out to NASCAR and Dale Jr. in the state of North Carolina for bringing back North Wilkesboro Speedway for the 2023 All-Star race. This track has been dormant since 1996. They left this track to go race in Texas, my most hated track. And it's one of the reasons why I hate that track, because they got rid of a great short track in North Wilkesboro. And it's been kind of sitting there decaying in the middle of the North Carolina foothills for almost 30 years now. But they've started to make repairs to it, and by next year, it's going to be ready for NASCAR to make its return for the first time in 27 years. So that is a huge deal for the sport, and almost in a way kind of rights some wrongs. Because it feels like the original sin of modern NASCAR is leaving some of these smaller tracks and smaller southern towns to chase some of the bigger markets, which worked in the short term in the late 90s and early 2000s, but I think really hurt them in the past 10 to 15 years. So this is a huge step for NASCAR to kind of hopefully gain some of their older fans back.
Yeah, I feel like, going to those towns will kind of energize the brand because I feel like we'll find new markets. I feel like for NASCAR, those were the markets. And shout out to my man, my Brazilian, the Formula 2 champion, Felipe Drogovic, who will become the first member of the Austin Martin Driver Development Program. And he also is going to join the team in 2023. So Brazil will have another pilot, another driver in the Formula One. There has been a long time since Brazil had a driver in Formula One. It was Pietro Fittipaldi that substituted Romain Grosjean after a terrible accident in 2017. So, so shout out to him. It's always good to have Brazilians back in Formula One. And my heartbreak is kind of about Flamengo gets another break from VAR. Another one. They were losing 1-0. VAR. I call here VAR because here we call VAR. But VAR. It got another break when Flamengo was losing 1-0 when they got a set piece and there was a kind of like a moment, like a header, and then it was at first was called a foul, but then VAR review and called no foul, and then of course all Goiás front office complained about, and then we're like, that's ridiculous. Flamengo always get a break from VAR, and I feel it's just weird that always the Flamengo gets the breaks from VAR. It's like at the third or fourth break that VAR gives Flamengo, and Flamengo always had that suspicion because they're like the Dallas Cowboys of Brazil. They always, when Dallas Cowboys got a break from the referees, like, oh, it's because of the Cowboys. They are the America's team. They're the biggest brand. You know the drill.
Yeah, we need VAR in every aspect of our lives. I feel like just imagine just like, oh, any dispute ever, let's go to VAR. We need VAR. Because
I,
it sounds like it's working so well for the Brazilian league.
yeah, it's, I thought it would be better. They start well, but the problem is not the machine. The problem is the referees. They got to be professionals. They can't be like I remember last year when you were complaining about of SEC officiating, and you know
And I still have a lot of complaints about as I don't like the amount of reviews in the Tennessee Pittsburgh game were ridiculous.
yeah, but the thing is, SEC officiating are not professionals. It's like their second job. It's like referee here in Brazil. They gotta be second jobs. They gotta be a bank teller or a dentist clerk or I don't know, work in some other industry and then be a referee. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I think
but
the SEC at this point they make so much money. They need to hire referees that are referees first. And I get it's a short season, but like you can give referees other jobs throughout the year or something. Do something. I mean, you should not. I mean, they were throwing
make a
flat the
partnership
other day in
or
Tennessee.
make a partnership with the NFL. Be like, hey, let's both, I don't know, create like partnerships. And just big shout out, we're ending our pod, but Jason Warwick, and he got a really good job. He was telling me he got a PA
Yeah,
job.
congratulations.
Congrats to my friend, our friend Jason Warwick. And with that note, that's it for tonight. Uh, Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, episode 41, recorded on September 13, 2002. Also, my thoughts and prayers to the victims of the September 11 attacks. This weekend marked the 21st anniversary of the date, and I know it changed America in a big landscape. So thoughts and prayers, obviously reminded. It was especially the Vols went there and played in Pennsylvania that had a plane crash there.
Yeah,
So
and definitely, we still think about it, because we read a story over the weekend on my news station about New York a fireman from the New York Fire Department who came down and but that had a huge demonstration for him and just how much it meant to him. So it's still something that matters so much. And really, one note I'll leave you off with: there's still a lot of first responders from 9/11 who are suffering from that in terms of health issues and everything else. So it's still a tragedy that is ongoing even to this day. So um, just because it happened 21 years ago doesn't mean it's not over. I mean, there are still people suffering from it. So it's something for us to always think about.
and I'll leave my note. I forgot my last pod, but it's always happy birthday to Brazil. Last week was the 200th anniversary of Brazil's independence from Portugal. Celebrated that happened on September 7, 1822. So Brazil
Oh
is
wow,
200 years old. What?
the bicentennial.
Bicentennial party. I know there was a lot of heated because of the election coming up, but still, I'm proud to be Brazilian. I'm proud to be from this great country, and also shout out to the first ever radio broadcast in Brazil, also celebrated this week, 100 years. So that's it for Gus Tomazeli, Nicholas Hill, and see you next time.
Gotta ride the waves and keep a tight relation with my team, keep it moving.